Welcome to the DeFi Standard. This is Patty XRP, and
Mickey B. Fresh.
today we have a very XRP Ledger focused video for you guys. There's been, a lot of talk around the XRP escrow on Twitter and chat rooms and stuff like that within the XRP community. Obviously, with this court case and people viewing the supply of the XRP tokens as potentially centralized, and if that can affect like consensus and things like that. So what we want to do is kind of just address several things in regards to that, especially the big question, can Ripple burn the XRP escrow? And then additionally, we're going to talk about one of the newer amendments, the negative UNL for the XRP ledger, and then a little brief bit on the first sidechain that will be coming sometime in 2022 for that will be based on the Ethereum virtual machine. So with that, Mickey, let's start off. Can Ripple burn the XRP escrow?
So the escrow that is held right now is held by the XRP ledger itself. So it's not custodied by Ripple themselves. There is no custodian of the escrow. The XRP ledger cryptographic protocols is what custodies the escrow. So let's just get that straight. So the answer in the whole is no. Ripple cannot do one fell swoop and just burn the escrow. What Ripple can do, technically, is if it was released every month, they could black hole the amount that comes out into a black hole account, but we would obviously see that and then have to trust them doing that every month. Now, going back to the whole point of this discussion of burning the escrow, why David Schwartz has brought it up, why Matt Hamilton has brought it up, it's not because of the choice of Ripple to burn the escrow or not, in my opinion. It's the fact that for the escrow to be burned, an amendment would have to be proposed. It would have to be discussed within the community, and the validators, 80% of them, would have to vote to change the protocol rules, basically fork the network, and remove that supply of the XRP that's held in escrow. And that is very unlikely, and there's really no need for that. But the point is that it can be done, that it's not Ripple who controls ultimately the escrow. It's the governance of the network, which is the validators in the UNL. They are the ones who could technically burn the escrow. They don't have any monetary incentives to validate the network, so they really have no monetary incentives to burn that escrow, unless the community demanded it. And we know that Ripple has been a very good steward of the escrow, and it's there to incentivize adoption, liquidity, and utility, just like any other network, the way Flare, with their general rewards pools, is incentivizing minting of F assets. What Ripple ultimately does with the escrow, I don't know, but there's plenty of different things that they can do with it. But they cannot physically burn it. Neither can any government. Neither can any SEC. Nobody could take the escrow away from Ripple. That is technically impossible to do. So I just wanted to clarify on how those things can go down and what cannot happen. Because there's all this discussion of should Ripple burn the escrow or not? But really the discussion should be is that Ripple or any entity can't burn the escrow in one fell swoop. It's impossible. It's only the validators, and that's after an amendment is proposed. So, for example, the negative UNL amendment took a year to get proposed and then voted on. So, for anything when it comes to burning escrow, it would take a long time for that to happen. It would never happen just overnight. There would be a vote, and then the escrow is gone. So, the discussion should be around that Ripple can't do this themselves, and no other entity can do that. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Patty?
Nothing too much other than, why is there XRP in the escrow? And, this is something that, from the beginning days of the XRP ledger, obviously was created by, a group containing like David Schwartz, Jed McCaleb, Arthur Brito, Chris Larson joined them shortly after. And they split about, I believe it's 20% between the founders. And then additionally, 80% went to a company which eventually became Ripple. And so over time, they were trying to find different ways to distribute it. I know, Mickey, you've told me about some of the times where they were trading XRP to people that were providing computational power for the network or different things that they were trying to do. So, that was one distribution mechanism. And then ultimately, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mickey, I think it was 2017 or 2016, they decided to, lock up the vast amount of what they had in escrow to bring some kind of, conditions into the escrow coming onto the market. Yes, it's still variable, but we do know the max amount of XRP that can come onto the market in any given 1 month from the escrow is 1 billion. So, I just wanted to kind of add in that history and see, Mickey, if you have something to add there as well.
Yeah. So regarding the actual sales of XRP, Ripple does not need to sell XRP to support their business right now. And if you compare since probably late 2019 to right now, the amount of XRP that actually has come on the market compared to the inflation of Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's literally a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of inflation that has come on the market from Bitcoin and Ethereum through the miners' rewards. So XRP is a deflationary asset. There's only 100 billion. No more can be created, and a small amount gets burned every transaction. Now, that amount that gets burned is very minimal. It will never impact the price of XRP, where there'll be so many transactions where it will drive it up. That's not something that will ever impact the price. That's not why it's there. It's to reduce spam on the ledger so that the transactions do have some cost to them and DDoS attacks. So the escrow is there to be used in the future, but since the XRP ledger doesn't have mining and it doesn't have proof of stake rewards and it doesn't have an FTSO like Flare, distributing the tokens there's no mechanism there for that yet. What I do see in the future is a mechanism that will distribute tokens in a way that will boost adoption, boost utility, and boost liquidity. How exactly that's going to take place? But Ripple doesn't need to profit from that escrow being released in the future. And I think that's what we'll see. And a lot of people get tied up thinking and comparing it too much to the traditional markets, thinking it's like a central bank. And it's not. Compare it more to other crypto networks and look at how they distribute out the tokens. Ripple doesn't need to profit from that. It just needs to boost the utility and liquidity. And now with this liquidity hub coming up, there's different ways that can be used. Bob Way also told us that when the escrow is released every month to the multi-sig wallet, there could be an additional escrow using crypto conditions that then distributes out that amount based on certain conditions. We don't know what those conditions are. We'll never know. They're not on the open public ledger. That's after it comes off. So we don't exactly know what those mechanisms are. But the escrow there, my personal opinion is, I don't even think there's a debate of should you burn it or not. It's really just should be known that it can be burned by the validators if the community chose to propose an amendment to burn it because of some reason, either Ripple acted maliciously, was hurting the ecosystem, or some regulatory entity tried to do something bad. That's the only reason why I could see the escrow being burned. We know Stellar burned 50% of their supply. That was off the market. What did it do for the price? Absolutely nothing. So burning the escrow would have zero impact on the price. And I think it would actually hurt the price, and it would hurt the ecosystem, and it would be a very bad thing personally.
Yeah, and to add on to that, Mickey, one of the reasons why, Stellar's burn didn't really affect the price that much, and why we don't think it would do, if XRP Ledger underwent the same kind of thing. People are pricing in the release of these tokens in the future. They're not already in the circulating supply that can be used today. Now, certainly, if you burned a vast portion of the supply that's currently circulating, that may, push up the price of the token. However, this future release of tokens in a rational market should be largely priced in at this point. I think that's what we saw with Stellar. I think we see that with XRP. they don't really go by, diluted market cap when we make top 10 rankings or any of that, fun stuff people like to do in the crypto community, even though, diluted market cap is pricing in future release of the tokens that, already exist, but just haven't been released into the ecosystem. I do think, I think we're going to see, in 2022, Mickey, when this court case clears up and Ripple gets out, their new automated market maker object that's going to be added to the XRP ledger, this EVM sidechain, and a lot of the other development going on, that they're now going to have a lot more options for distributing the tokens in a way that's beneficial to the network. So that's something, I would like to see what they're going to do with that before I would even, entertain kind of conversations around what should happen with the escrow. Like, certainly, I think it should be used for incentives and stuff like that, because other networks have done the same. And I think it's, worked pretty well to this point. But I think Ripple's fully, well aware that there is a stigma around the XRP ledger, and the fact that, 50% of the supply in the future is going to be, or, the total supply that there can be, 50% of that is going to, release to Ripple over time. So a lot of times people will conflate, centralization of token supply with centralization of consensus, which in this case is not, that is not what's happening at all. Ripple runs like some 5% of the validators that could make changes like we're describing. So just because they own a lot of the tokens doesn't necessarily mean anything in regards to consensus.
Yeah, this is one thing that I think gets confused between proof of stake networks and consensus on the XRP ledger and, for example, Stellar. Owning a large supply of the tokens on XRP ledger gives you no influence over governance, and it gives you no influence over the consensus. But if that was a proof of stake network, and say it was ETH 2.0, for example, and you held half the supply, that would be a huge deal, because it would give you massive influence over the governance and over the consensus. But since XRP Ledger doesn't use value to secure the network or the governance, it doesn't really matter. And that's why I think the major confusion comes in the crypto communities when they see, oh, Ripple holds a ton of the tokens. It doesn't give them really any influence or anything over the governance or the consensus. Now, I want to address one other point here that I think there's been other confusion in our community specifically. So in the past, David Schwartz, in a presentation at Stanford University, said, no incentive is the best incentive. And this, he was specifically referring to consensus. And the community has found a way to twist this into thinking that incentives are bad. Incentives are not bad. All of game theory, crypto economics is all based on incentives. What David Schwartz is pointing out is that it's not needed in consensus, because using value to secure the network brings other problems with it. And this is one of the major problems with proof of stake and scaling. And we know Hugo, CEO of Flare, has explained why Flare chose to use Federated Byzantine Agreement instead of proof of stake, because value is not securing the network, and therefore it lacks, it won't be able to scale ultimately if you bring more value on it than actually used to secure the network. So that's something we're not even near in the crypto industry yet. But once trillions of dollars come on these platforms and they're using proof of stake to secure them, there is certain flaws in proof of stake. And proof of stake isn't a breakthrough in consensus. There's nothing different about it. It's basically using Federated Byzantine Agreement with just putting value at stake. Now that hurts the utility of the native token, and XRP Spark doesn't have to deal with that. That's why you're able to earn rewards from the FTSO without having to participate in the consensus. You don't need an incentive. Now, this may not work in every network, but David Schwartz's example here and his argument was specifically around consensus, not around other incentives. So I know there's been a lot of confusion in the community thinking incentives are bad. That is completely false, and that is not what he meant by any means. So I just wanted to clear that up there.
Oh, well, that sounds good, Mickey. I think we can move over into our next topic. So what we'll start with here, and I'll have you just explain to everybody what is the negative UNL amendment and why does it matter?
So the negative UNL amendment was a big amendment that was just recently passed. And it actually took almost a whole year for it to be proposed and then voted on and passed. So in the past, a couple weeks ago, the ledger halted for a short period of time because a certain amount of UNL validators, their servers went down. And it was a very rare occurrence. Now, the servers could go down for any number of reasons. And if more than 20% of the servers go down, the ledger halts because it prefers safety over moving forward. So now with this negative UNL, if more than 20% or even a certain amount of the servers go down, it will put these servers in a negative UNL and it will bring in other validators to the UNL so the ledger will never halt and it will continue to make forward progress. So this overcomes a potential risk in the past where the ledger could halt. And it only halted for a very short period of time. But now with this negative UNL, there was a lot of academic research put into this. This will help the ledger from never halting again in the future. And it will continue to make forward progress by being able to actually build into the protocol. Those servers go down, get put into a negative UNL, and it brings in other validators. Since there's 175 or so validators on the ledger, it brings in the other validators to the UNL to allow it to make forward progress. So this is a very big thing for the ledger to be able to continue to be future-proof in the future.
And maybe to put you a little on the spot, because we didn't discuss this before, Mickey, but the question just kind of came to my head. Could you explain why certain validators are part of the UNL and why others would be standing on the sidelines to possibly come in and help out during, a period of distress for some of the validators dropping into this negative UNL?
It depends on which nodes choose which validator. So there's something like 900 or something nodes, and every node it's up to them to choose which validators they want on the UNL. So basically, There's one UNL at the moment, but there's going to be multiple, I believe. So don't quote me on this specifically on the technicals here. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe there's going to be multiple UNLs come January with the XRP Ledger Foundation and then with Coil, and they overlap into different quorums with them. And I don't want to get too much into the technicals with the UNL. Just know basically that it's going to always be able to make forward progress now. So even if some of the UNL validators go down, it'll be able to bring in some of the others in an autonomous type of way.
Cool. Thanks for entertaining my question there. And then with this final part, which we may have misquoted in the past or misstated about the side chains requiring an amendment to launch in the future. But Mickey, you want to take what you have there?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So actually, the federated sidechains, there does not need to be amendment passed for them to launch. And all the documentation is on GitHub right now. It's under, I think, Spring Engine, Spring-Engine, and they show the whole documentation for the federated sidechains. So it's all ready to go. So no amendment needs to be passed. There's no new objects being added to the ledger. And the first one that Ripple said that they're going to build through RippleX is going to be an EVM-based sidechain. So now this EVM-based sidechain is going to allow for Ethereum-based smart contracts to be able to be built there. This is for NFTs. This will also help interoperability between other EVM-based sidechains. So this will help with interoperability to Binance Smart Chain, to Ethereum, to Avalanche's EVM sidechain, to all other networks. So it'll allow the XRP ledger to connect to those. And some people might ask, well, isn't this competition to Flare? No, it's not necessarily competition to Flare because it's more utility for XRP. So for XRP to be moved to a sidechain, it has to be locked on the mainnet and then issued on the sidechain. Now, the difference between that and FXRP is FXRP comes with inbuilt yield. So think of FXRP as like a premium version of XRP that's trustless that comes with yield. So the more use cases and the more utility for XRP, the higher the value is going to be. And this is what utility is: using XRP on a sidechain, using XRP on Flare, using XRP on the mainnet. Now, these sidechains can have their own issued tokens as well. They could be public and decentralized, or they could be private and permissioned like the CBDC sidechains. So there's going to be a whole slew of different sidechains built. But we know right now the first one is going to be EVM based, which I think is really interesting because I think that will lead to the other amendments. So the three other amendments are the Hooks Amendment, which means light smart contracts on the main ledger. And then you have the Automated Market Maker amendment. And then we have the big amendment, which is the NFT amendment. That's going to add multiple new objects to the ledger and probably is the biggest amendment and changes in the history of the XRP ledger. So those are going to take some time to be implemented, but the federated sidechains are not going to take that much time. So I would think, like Patty said, probably come January, we're going to start to see the spin up of this. And as XRP gets clarity, what's going to happen? More utility is going to happen on the XRP mainnet and these sidechains. Now, these sidechains are also able to do similar to what Songbird does as a canary network. So different technologies and innovations can be tested on sidechains with real world value. And that's one thing David Schwartz has brought up in the past. This will allow more testing of innovation with real world value. And that's why he was so, hyped about Songbird. And he was like, that was such a great decision by the Flare team to build Songbird. And I know some of you upset you didn't get your airdrop yet. And you know what? You're going to wait until the network is ready. Because I think having the Canary network is super important to have an enterprise-grade production-ready Flare network. And these side chains are going to help with bringing new amendments to the XRP Ledger mainnet in the future. So this is called horizontal scaling. So having many of these side chains, and if you're familiar with Polkadot or ETH 2.0, it's similar in that way. You're going to have a lot of different blockchains connected to one mainnet, and that will be the XRP Ledger.
Yeah, and to add here, Mickey, with having an EVM sidechain, that's also going to open up the XRP ledger to allow for some of these, layer 2 projects and blockchains that are being built out to basically live above the XRP ledger through that EVM sidechain, that are built specifically for, those kind of smart contracts. So, that could be something like Credo in the future, or Panther Protocol, Alliance Block, or many of these other layer 2s out there. So I think that's a cool thing. Yeah. Well, because it'll be interesting to see how this goes with them, since they really want to be able to use the hooks on the mainnet, between just building your layer 2, connecting down to maybe an EVM based sidechain versus the actual XRP ledger mainnet. I'm curious how that's going to work out, because, it seems like there's some different technical components to that. But, one of the things is a lot of blockchains, even if they're not necessarily like heavy on the EVM, they do have an EVM component, which allows these other projects, since EVM is the most like developed and used smart contracts, it's basically like the standard today. There's other ones that can come in and be part of that in the future, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and also other side chains could have custom smart contracting programming languages built just for, say, capital markets or just for tokenization. So we'll see. Who knows if PolySign's blockchain is going to be a sidechain? I don't know. I don't want to speculate there, but it is possible that one of them are. And different sidechains will be for different use cases and different utility for XRP. So what does this really do? It opens up XRP to unlimited really use cases and a massive horizontal scaling. So when everyone says everything is going to run on the ledger, no, everything is not going to run on the actual mainnet, but everything could run sideways horizontally on different side chains. So that's really where this is going. And just to understand that this is the vision of what's being implemented in your investment, and you should know what you own. So these side chains are going to be a big part of what you own. I know there's a hysteria right now around the airdrops and all that going on. This is going to bring in more projects. So the community engagement, I just saw a stat that showed, I think Crypto Eddie brought it up, something about 100,000 new XRP accounts being created every day or every week. I forgot the actual stat, which is massive, which is more than any other network. So other projects are seeing the engagement from our community that we want to participate is going to bring more projects in. So I think that's important that the community looks to participate in things like Songbird, things like Flare, and eventually the XRP Ledger mainnet and the sidechain. So things are going to change rapidly in 2022. Not just clarity, but actual utility of XRP and actual participation from the community. So being in the community is going to be a transition in general of what it means to be in the community. So researching is great and digging up everything, that's great, but participating is a whole nother level. And these are community-driven networks. All blockchains are community-driven networks. XRP Ledger is not a bank network. It's public, decentralized, and open source, which means it's going to be able to be used by everybody at any time. Anyone can tap into the XRP Ledger. Anyone could go into their Zum wallet and trade on the XRP Ledger DEX. So these are things that are never going to change. So I know some people say, oh, the government's never going to let you do this, that. Well, they obviously don't understand the technology. And it is important to understand the technology to know what you're invested into. Because if you think that, the government could come in and just change protocol of an open source project, it can't happen. Okay, so that is just the technology. That's how it works. And it's important to understand that in your investment. And we're not here just to ride the coattails of Ripple. This is a community-driven network, and we have to be willing to participate in the future. Now, you don't have to participate in everything. Some things are higher risk than other, but being engaged in the community and being part of what's being built here and understanding it is very important moving forward. And I think first will come Songbird, Flare, and then the XRP Ledger. And with clarity, we're going to see a boom in projects and legit projects too. So I'm very excited for 2022 and these amendments that are going to be passed and the side chains that are going to come first. So any last thoughts, Patty?
No, I think that was great right there. And we touched on several different topics. So that's all I have.
Yeah, I guess just the last thing I wanted to say with the escrow is we don't know exactly how the escrow is going to be utilized. But I do think that there is multiple ways it could be distributed without Ripple having to necessarily profit, but that could benefit the actual XRP network, the liquidity hub, and other ways. That value there is not to pay off the debt of the world. Enough with that. That very frustrates me so much because that's not what the escrow is for. The escrow is there to be utilized to boost adoption and utility and liquidity. However it is used, it's not there as a monetary value in dollars. So say XRP's price went to $10. That escrow is not valued at that price. Bob Way has already told us that. It's valued at a much less. Plus, it only can be distributed out at $1 billion per month anyway. So you can't value it at a monetary value and just say, oh, Ripple's the richest company in the world, because they can't really access that XRP anyway. And I do think something will come along where there will be a new type of distribution mechanism that will be for after we get clarity. But we could discuss that when the time comes.
I think they're probably discussing ways or know how they would do that at this point. So,
and I don't.
We already know. Oh, go ahead.
I don't think the SEC is going to put restrictions on anything. Once XRP gets clarity, and I believe it's going to be not from a settlement, it's going to be from summary judgment come January, when they ask for the status of XRP from the judge, and the judge rules this is not a digital security, which means not a security. That means all the XRP that Ripple holds, not a security. I do not see any restrictions coming or anything like that, because that's why they're not settling at this point. So I have a different belief than BitBoy. I don't think settlement's coming in December. If Ripple was going to settle, they would have settled already. And you got to keep in mind, there's 3 different claims here, and they all could be settled in different ways. And I think the first one, most importantly, is the status of XRP. Since the SEC said it's a digital security, Ripple can ask for, and since we're the community, our friends of the court, summary judgment on that claim. And once the judge rules that it's not a digital security, then maybe we could see a settlement of the investment contracts or other things. But clarity on XRP, the best way to get it, as John Deaton has said, is from the court by law. And that's what I'm looking for.
I hear that. So with that, this is the DeFi Standard. I'm Patty XRP.
And I'm Mickey B. Fresh.
And we're out. See y'all.